History's strange, it's alien, and it won't give us what we would like to have.
3,000 men stood freezing for an idea. They stood on Senate Square in December of 1825, boots locked to the ice, muskets idle, breath hanging in the air. By dusk, their revolution would be drowned in blood and ice. They would fail to seize power, fail to issue their manifesto, and fail to escape the gallows or the mines of Siberia. And yet, their failure would change Russia forever. This was not a riot of the desperate or the starving. This was the first organized political revolt against Russian autocracy, led not by peasants but by aristocrats and officers who had seen another world and could no longer pretend it did not exist. This is the story of the Decembrist Revolt. These men were the children of 1812, young officers who had chased Napoleon all the way to Paris and walked the streets of Europe in victory. There they encountered constitutions, civic rights, and the unsettling idea that governments could be restrained by law. When they returned home, the contradiction became unbearable. The peasant soldiers who saved Russia were still legally enslaved. Tsar Alexander I had once promised reform, then retreated into mysticism and reaction. He granted Poland a constitution while denying one to Russia. To this generation, it felt like betrayal. The movement that followed was fatally divided. In St. Petersburg, the Northern Society favored a constitutional monarchy, limited reform, and order preserved through elite control. Serfdom would end, but land would remain largely in noble hands. In the South, Colonel Pavel Pestel envisioned something far more radical, a centralized republic, the elimination of the imperial family, and sweeping social change. They shared a goal, but not a future. That division would prove lethal. Then history intervened by accident. Alexander I died suddenly in November 1825. The legal heir, Constantine, had secretly renounced the throne. A manifesto naming Nicholas as successor remained hidden. For weeks, Russia had no clear ruler. Oaths were sworn, then questioned. When Nicholas finally ordered a new oath for December 14th, the conspirators seized the confusion, claiming Nicholas was a usurper and Constantine a prisoner. The plan collapsed almost immediately. The appointed leader, Prince Sergei Trubetskoy, never appeared. The rebels stood leaderless. When the war hero Miloradovich tried to reason with them, he was shot. The last chance for compromise died with him. As darkness approached, Nicholas ordered artillery. Grapeshot tore through the ranks. Fleeing soldiers ran onto the frozen Neva, where cannon fire shattered the ice beneath them. The aftermath was merciless. Nicholas personally interrogated the conspirators. 5 men were hanged in July 1826. The execution was botched. The ropes broke. They were hanged again. More than 100 others were stripped of rank and sent to Siberia. The state intended erasure. It created martyrs instead. Then came the women. 11 noblewomen chose exile with their husbands. They renounced titles, wealth, and legal rights. Nicholas forbade them from taking their children, forcing an impossible choice. In Siberia, they built a community, sustained morale, and became symbols of moral defiance. Pushkin would write to them from afar, urging patience in the dark. History resists simplicity. The Decembrists were idealists divided by incompatible visions. Constitutional monarchists and radical republicans consumed themselves in theory and hesitation. They were flawed, human, and very much of their time. Understanding them requires restraint, not judgment. The echoes of that single day lasted a century. Nicholas built a police state in response. Orthodoxy, autocracy, and nationality became doctrine. Revolutionaries remembered the Decembrists as pioneers. Herzen, Tolstoy, even Lenin traced a lineage back to that frozen square. History and hope are not the same thing. When people surrender the ability to think for themselves, they surrender the ability to push back when reality disappoints them. The Decembrists failed, but they proved that silence could crack, and once cracked, it never fully heals.
Check out more stories from history at davedoeshistory.org.